8th verse of the 3rd chapter. That part where they were talking about robbers. And we talked about robbers. Let's just somebody had that before. Robbers in the church. Well, we're moving on. Look at all the lessons. That church for us. Everything. I should have said a word. Let us look at the next two verses. 10th verse and the 11th verse. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruit of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. We are continuing with our stewardship emphasis theme. Tithing is a part of stewardship. We are endeavoring to provoke you to wrestle with the question of stewardship. We want you to be even as Jacob was, encountering the Lord and wrestling with him, and being so audacious that you would say, I'm not going to let you go until you help me with this thing. I believe if you would do that, God would help you with it. Subject. Let's make a deal. I tried to remember that television program, but I couldn't remember. It saved my life. But at least you've heard of the television program called Let's Make a Deal. I don't know whether God got the idea from the television program. I doubt it. But God could be way back here and could see way over there, so he could have, even before the producers came up with the program. Don't you laugh? God could have anticipated the fact long before the fact was a fact. My God does stuff like that. Background a little bit. The people were in the midst of a personal and national crisis regarding their relationship with God. Their religious practices had become perfunctory, habitual routine, void of spiritual depth, void of zeal, void of power, void of spirit. They were, as it were, automatons. They were just like robots responding. They were faithful in their attendance at the synagogues and the temple. The festival days were observed. In general, their conduct was ethical a spiritual cloud loomed over them. A thick malaise prevailed. A heaviness weighed upon them and caused their mood to be somber. They weren't sure of themselves. But more than that, they weren't sure of God. Because of this state of uncertainty, they were robbing themselves. And they were robbing God too. They were robbers in the church. They could not give the tithe and the offering as required by God because they knew not the richness of God's gift to them. If you know of the richness and the goodness of God in your life, no way you could rob it, but it's because our lives are uninformed of the true goodness of God. That's why we try to do it ourselves, work it out ourselves, figure it out ourselves, add it up ourselves. Because we do not know of the richness of God's gift to us. It was to his people, languishing under these circumstances, that God said, let's make a deal. Amazing. It was to these people that God said, let's make a deal. In praying over this text, in asking God, open it up, Lord. Open it up for me. Give me the goodies that you have in the text. Open it up. God said the people need to come to grips with this verse. That God is aware of our doubts. Huh? God understands why we're poor stewards. God understands why we don't tithe of treasure, of time, of talents. God said, tell them things that their doubts are not hidden from me. I know they have doubts. Isn't it good to know that you don't have to hide your doubts? Isn't it good to know that God knows when you are yet alive? God knows that you have doubts. This deal acknowledges our doubts. Huh? God is acknowledging, God is saying, let's make a deal because you have some doubts. So I want to make a deal with you so that you won't have any doubts, hopefully, after the deal is consummated. We doubt, can God really do it? You know you doubt that. If I give 10% of my time, of my talent, of my treasure, can God do it? I get to hell with 100% of it. Can God work it out? I don't know. the will of God. Will God do it? We declare that God has all power, but is God going to use his power to work it out for me in the economy of God? Why will God focus on me and recognize my need and attend to my needs? So we don't question whether God can. We question whether God will do it. This deal acknowledges our doubts. This deal says that God understands our doubts. That God understands that his ways are mysterious to us. Getting by giving. We don't understand that. Adding by subtracting. We don't understand that. Multiplying by dividing. We don't understand that. We have doubts whether you can add by subtracting. That's contrary to everything that we've ever been taught. So God understands the doubts that are in our minds. Live by dying. Dying by living. God understands that. That's some strange stuff. So he says, I understand your doubts. And God also honors our doubts. God doesn't make little of our doubts. You know how you can go to some people and tell them your problems, and you get the feeling that they are making light of your problems. God is not making light. God honors our doubts. That's why he says, let's make a deal. Because I recognize that your doubts are there. Second, quickly reflect on the nature of deals. Think quickly. What are the characteristics of deals? When a deal's made, who makes deals? I thought about all of that, and I came up with 3 basic scenarios about deals. One, deals result from attempts to satisfy needs. Did you read the other day where Larry Johnson, it's not basketball season, but this was in the paper. Larry Johnson plays power forward for the Charlotte Hornets. Okay? Made a deal. You got, what, $84 million to sign a contract to make a deal with the Charlotte Hornets. Why? Well, Charlotte had something that Larry needed. Larry had something that Charlotte needed. So they said, what? Let's make a deal. Deals are made when persons have mutual needs that can be fulfilled from the deal. When you have something that I need and I have something that you need, we can get together and make a deal. Since we're in the arena of basketball, there was a forward, a rebounding defensive specialist who played for the Detroit Pistons. What was his name? Rodman. Top defensive player. leading rebounder. A deal was made between the Pistons and one of those West Coast teams that brought a fellow named Sean Elliott to Detroit in exchange for Rodman. Why? Because Detroit needed what Sean Elliott had, and the West Coast team, I don't know whether it was San Antonio, the Spurs. Rodman had what they needed, so they said, well, let's make a deal. Deals are made under those circumstances. One example, other kinds of deals are made when one is trying to impose themselves and their will and their way on somebody else. I ran out of time. I wanted to do some more research on this. Anybody here remembers the deal between the Indians and the settlers over the island of Manhattan? Nobody was here. But Greer raised his hand. That was a deal where a hostile takeover. Some deals are not deals, they are hostile takeovers. The strong tries to impose their will on the weak. A few strands of beads, and we got Manhattan from the Indians, and we call that a deal. That was a ripoff. Some deals are characterized by those who are in positions of authority and power, abusing somebody else, taking advantage of those Indian deals. And then the third kind of deal is where the weak tries to cozy up to the strong. Israel was weak and Egypt was strong. Israel said to the Egyptians, let's make a deal. If we make a deal, I will have available to me all of your armies, and all of your chariots, and all of your horses, and all of your spears, and I will be safe. But notice the deal that God makes with us. Clearly, there is nothing that we have that God needs. I mean, what is it that you have that God needs? So it couldn't have been scenario number one, where you had something that God needed and God had something that you needed, so therefore God said, let's make a deal. There is nothing that we have that God needs. Everything that we have comes from God, and if God needed it, God wouldn't give it, God would keep it, and then we wouldn't have it, and then there wouldn't be an issue to deal with. So there is nothing that we have that God needs. So the deal is not based upon a quid pro quo, where you get a little and you give a little, you scratch my back and I'll scratch your back. That's not the basis of the deal. Could it be then a certain scenario too, where God is imposing his will through the deal? If you look at the deal, God isn't imposing his will. Because if God ever chose to impose his will, the ball game's over, y'all. I mean, we wouldn't have to have stewardship months, time and emphasis, and all this kind of stuff. If God's desire was to impose his will, God could do that in so many ways, so that it's not an imposition of the will of God. And you must know that you are not strong and God is weak. You must know that God isn't trying to make a deal with you so that he would have your strengths and your assets available to him. So it can't be that. What does this deal say to us then about God? God says, let's make a deal. He said, bring all the tithes into my storehouse. Point 2 of the deal, try me. Point 3, what will I do as my part of the deal? I'll open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Next, I will revoke, rebuke the devourer. Those spirits, those people, those circumstances that are destined to destroy the fruit of your labor. He says, I will devour them. I will rebuke them. I will be a fence all around you. I will protect you. God says, let's make a deal. But he doesn't say here, he is, I'm going to give you 100%. I'm going to give you 100%. Keep 90% of treasure, keep 90% of your talent, keep 90% of your time. But bring the tithe, bring the tenth into the storehouse. What isn't spelled out in the contract, but if you read between the lines, you will understand that even the tenth will be available for you. Yeah, then you used to have storm sellers down south, and then you keep those storm sellers stacked up and stocked up, so that if your regular supply ran out and the storms of life started to rage, then you had to go down into the storm cellar, you would have something there. That's all God is going to do with the 10. God doesn't need them on 10. But God understands that we will need it. You will need it. Somebody sitting here before this week is out will need to go to the storehouse. That's why God wants to make a deal, so that there will be something not going to use that slang. It's derogatory. There's a word that we used to use when we want to get somebody down. You know what you say. I'm not going to say it. You negotiated him down. You didn't jail him down. No, you didn't. But the point is, you would come running after I finished with that salesman. He was asking for something up here, but when I finished with him, I got it for a price down here. I got a deal. I've even heard some grooms and some brides say at the reception, not at the anniversary, but at the reception, I got a deal. Put all of your deals together. They will not equal the deal that God offers to us. He's not forcing it on anybody. He says, here are the terms. Let's make a deal. Are you interested? Doors are open. Doors are open. It's deal-making time. You can't meet and give it. I mean, that's not a part of the deal. Meeting him, giving. He just wants you to say, I want to make a deal with you, Lord, because I know this deal is going to be the best deal that I've ever made in my life. Doors are open. It's hard to make a deal unless you come to the house of the partner in the deal maker. This qualifies you to become a partner in the deal. Doors are open. You are invited to come.